Good evening. We shift the focus now to COVID and its impact on the education system in our country. We've had a series of conversations right from the academic sessions to the exam calendar, to how children are actually adapting, to how schools are adapting to online education, its impact. We've also spoken about reopening of schools and the mental health impact that it's had on our students. Tonight, there is a specific aspect I want to talk about. And that is how increasingly in many states we're observing last year, this year is a bigger trend, a big shift in admissions in students from private schools to public schools. And even under the right to education, which would enable students to enroll in private schools as well. In states like Tamil Nadu, there has been a drop. Tamil Nadu, Andhra, Telangana, Gujarat, Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, the trend of the shift from private to public is apparent. And tonight I want to discuss that. Let me tell you what's happening in Tamil Nadu first. Admissions under the right to education in private schools are down by 29%. So about 50,000 students were admitted in LKG in class 1, even though double the number of seats were available. Far fewer applications came in, fewer than those who were actually eligible for admission under RTE, and a much lower number finally got admission. This was published in the Times of India a couple of days ago. Now, experts say there can be various reasons, but one of the key reasons is the economic aspect of how the pandemic has hit people, their livelihood, their ability to spend, and hence their ability to pay, even to the extent that under RTE, whatever little bit of expenditure they have to do, they're not able to do that, which is why they're shifting them to government schools. One of the other states, when we looked at this data and decided to dig into this more and see if this is a pan-India trend, we found another news report that showed even more disastrous data. In the state of Bihar, private schools themselves, thousands of them have actually shut down. 6,000 of the 25,000 private schools have shut down. Financial constraints are hitting the parents, students, teachers, as well as the schools. Now, if this report, as per the Indian Express, is correct, based on data that was shared, official data, 19.6 lakh children dropped out of schools last year up till January this year. Some of the other states have similar scary trends, and numbers and the data points are vary from date to date, which is whatever is available right now in the public domain. But for example, in Uttar Pradesh, 70 lakh students have shifted from government schools to private or have dropped off. 10% from private schools shifted to government schools, again, possibly as a big issue this year. In Andhra Pradesh, over 2 lakh shifted from private to government schools. 60,000 students dropped out of schools altogether. In Telangana, over 1 lakh shifted from government schools to private schools as well. In Madhya Pradesh, over 1 lakh shifted from private schools to government schools, and there the reports suggest largely because of inability to pay fees. Most recent data emerged from the state of Gujarat that reported 5 lakh students have shifted from private to government schools, again because of financial issues. In Haryana, the story is no different. What is going on? And how is there a need to address this with government-state intervention? Do we need to somehow strengthen the Right to Education Act and the rules, maybe subsidize it further? Do we need to look at other options to enable students access to better education? Now, in some states, it may not be such a big problem, because in some of the states, the public education structure set up, quality is good, and so it's not a concern. But in many of the other states, in many parts, we struggle for good public sector schools, for good quality education. So should this be a concern for us? How do the experts read it? And is there a need for state intervention? I say good evening to IVR Krishna Rao, former Chief Secretary for Andhra Pradesh, former Director for Ministry of HRD for Centre as well. Aditi Jain Anil, founder for Pragya Vatran Educational Society. Dr. Sanjeev Rai, educationist and author. Jayaprakash Gandhi, career consultant. Shashi Kumar, Secretary for Karnataka Private School Association, also joining us this evening. Let me actually start off with Mr. Krishna Rao. Mr. Rao, a trend that we are witnessing in many parts of this country. Should we be concerned?
I think if children are shifting from private schools to the public schools, it's not really a matter of big concern. It's a welcome concern in my view. For two reasons. You were mentioning it can differ from state to state, but quite a number of states, especially in the south, have excellent public schools and very good educational faculty. The only thing is there is this mindset in the lower middle class that a private school is better. Not necessarily, but it's just an impression. Based on that, a lot of people are unnecessarily spending a lot of money in sending their children to these private schools. Because of this financial constraint that comes down and children start coming to public schools, government schools, in my view, that's a very, very good welcome step, because one of the main reasons why public schools in a way are not doing the way they should do, because right from the middle class, whoever could afford something better are going to the private schools. So even the students, whoever are left out, can't go there, are only coming here. The teachers are also not challenged. But once slightly better strata of the society start sending their children to the public schools, they will have a better interest in the public schools. To that extent, the services of the public school also will go up. So I think it's a welcome trend, whatever could be the reason. That's
you say it's a welcome trend because you do need, more students enrolling into government schools as well. In many places, the government schools do offer, or public sector schools do offer good education. But then why is it, Mr. Rao, that we do see every time a family is able to afford private education, they quickly shift their children and send them to a private school?
That's right. I mean, it's more as I told you, a psychological value that's being given to the private schools. After all, I mean, when these private schools were not available the way they are now, after proliferation in the last 50 years or so, everybody was going to the public school or to the government school as it was. And you had the children from different social strata going into the public school, so they also used to get a lot of attention. But over a period of time, this fad has developed among the middle class, a thinking that a private school is better than the public school. In fact, in terms of the faculty, their qualification, or the level of attainment, definitely the public schools, the recruitment process itself is so rigorous and that's paid so better. Anybody who is slightly more intelligent will land up as a teacher in a public school rather than in a private school. The only point is one of motivation of the teachers. Government will have to do something about motivating the teachers, and they keep on learning on the learning curve so that they get updated on whatever is happening in that particular faculty. So if that is ensured, any day the public school is a preferable option to a less funded private school.
Okay. Let me bring in Mr. Sanjeev Rai as well. Dr. Sanjeev Rai, how do you read this trend? And is there a cause for worry?
Thank you, Tanvi, for organizing this debate. This is very, very interesting. And I agree to some extent to Mr. Rao. And I want to just raise this issue. This is not related to COVID only. If you see the data from last few years, the 2% fluctuation from private to government to private school keeps happening in the states. And let's acknowledge that in the recent times, at least infrastructures have been improved by many state governments, including Delhi, UP, Rajasthan. I'm talking about the infrastructure. Of course, during this COVID period, lots of people migrated from urban to rural centers. That also caused the shutting down of small private schools in the urban and semi-urban locations. This is one reason. The second reason is there are thousands of teachers. I personally know several hundred teachers who are very innovative, techno-savvy, and committed, working in the government education system. So they also work as a pull factor. So along with the the pull factor also works in attracting students in the government school. Some state governments have taken decisions to start the English medium sections. So that also one of the positive factor attracting parents and children to attend the government school. So this is also a fact. If you see the budgetary allocation, so earlier the central government was the driving force through Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan. In the recent time, you can find the 5% increase in the state budget. Though in totality, the education budget has not gone up to what we have been demanding, the 6% of GDP. But current ratio in most of the state and center is the 60 and 40%. And state governments are demonstrating in public that they are committed to the cause of public education. So that also contributes in getting more number of students. On the other hand, the invisible children are also in a big number who may be drop out. And like you mentioned the data from Bihar, Haryana, and other places. But once the rapid survey done, mapping the out of school children, especially the girl children, and then we would be knowing the exact number of the children who have left the schools during these 2-3 years. And those are, of course, the marginalized one, and many people have been raising this issue because if you see the Ebola case of Western Africa, when the Ebola occurred, 25% adolescent girls left the school. So if 25% girls studying in secondary and senior secondary schools leave the school in India, that would be a huge number. At least 80 lakh to 1 crore children may leave the school. But this is an estimated data. The actual data should come from the government after doing a rapid survey of the potential and dropout children.
Yes, absolutely correct. And I was actually going to raise that as the other big important point. Mr. Shashi Kumar, good evening to you. Dropouts in many of the states, some have yet to give us collated numbers. But large number, for example, in Andhra Pradesh, 60,000 students. In Bihar, I mean, the numbers are staggering if that is what it is in terms of the shift as well as the dropouts. Now, how do we fix this?
Definitely what those two gentlemen were saying. See, I have a different story on this because when we talk about Karnataka, we had a survey done, especially with 250 sample schooling, and we found out of 1,85,000 students who were there last year, there was hardly 1,29,000, and there was just within 250 schools there were 60,000 dropouts. I'm talking about just 250 schools. Just imagine these students have never paid or they are never confirmed for continuation of learning. That was one big thing. And what is government doing is government has created such a mess that they have openly called the parents and the students to come and join in their schools without paying the fees of the arrears in the private and aided school. So this was taken as an opportunity for those many parents, and they have gone there and just got admitted because number one, they are getting free promotion, free push for the next class without exam, and this has caused most of the children staying at home, not going even to the government school because government doesn't giving them like online education or whatever it, they are just providing it through television and by radio. And the private schools are providing these things by online. They're struggling to do that. But unfortunately, we saw 38% of the parents who are in the school by paying minimum fees. We are talking about most budget school. We are not talking about high fees collecting school wherein the parents, most of them, they are paid because they are worried of their losing their seats in that reputed schools. But when it comes to state board schools, most of the government school teacher have gone house to house survey, collected data, and they have enrolled in government school because the child should not be out of school just to show in the high court, honorable high court. This faking of data and forcefully making private unaided school promotion, mass promotion and mass admission. It is really a disaster that most school were being forcefully done with their admission just on the record, but as per the physical status, that is not the scenario. This has worried, and now they are creating a hype that more school children from private schools are joining government school. Yes, there is some certain shift. These are the one who has not paid in the private unaided school and they are gone there. None of the ICSE or international board students are in government. Only from state board to state board or aided school to government school. This is what the situation on ground reality is.
Yes, but
So,
that, Mr.
this
Shashikumar,
why
obviously is because people are not able to afford it. And that's the segment that's been hit the most. I mean, those who are sending their children to international boards still have a lot of money to be able to do that. They've not been hit
yes,
by the
we
pandemic.
do
And the government
agree
needs to
that
look into the middle class, which is getting hit the most, where they were, tied up in battles with the private schools for the longest time, that they're not able to pay the school fee and now don't have an option but to shift to government schools.
the unfortunate thing is, see, if they have really gone there and getting the thing, for example, if a government school is calling the private unaided school English medium students and they getting there admitted, they are not providing English medium there. No teachers have been recruited. There are no teachers at all. Even after then Kumarsamy government, when he was the CM, he just announced one English subject in government school, wherein from then to now they couldn't even recruit the English medium teachers. How justification you can do with this issue that providing English medium for those students who have shifted from English medium school? That is a big challenge there. If you are teaching Kannada as a medium of instruction in your government school and getting the admission done by the private unaided school English medium, then there is no scope for that. See, here another story is the students have shifted to government school only on records. They are not even in government school getting the learning continued, and they are out of schools. Even in private unaided schools, those students are like they are going for labors. There are been childhood marriage. All these things are happening even in private schools. So our worry is government is just on record they are doing it, but actually it is not there exactly what we are finding the scenario.
Okay, so you say that the ground reality is a little different from what this suggests. Mr. Jayaprakash Gandhi,
We
good
have
evening to you. Yes.
a evidence for that. We have a evidence for that.
Okay, Mr. Jayaprakash Gandhi, good evening to you. What is your own reading? And, of course, different states may have some amount of different local reasons as well as to why it's taking place. But, for example, dropouts is a big trend everywhere. The shift from private to public is visible as well. Interestingly, even under the right to education, we are seeing a drop in the applications and the admissions.
Very good. Tamil Nadu scenario is totally different. Now, the first question you asked me, why in RTE it is down? See, when I interact with the parents, because one of the very few interact with thousands of students every day. See, what they say is, sir, if I join a private school under RTE, paying the same government school fees and joining government school directly, I have a great advantage in joining government school. Why? Because the government of Tamil Nadu has introduced a 7.5 reservation for every government school student when gets admission in all the professional courses, including even an MBBS doctor we have for engineering, agri, law, all the professional courses. Then when I have the advantage of that, see, when a student doing the private school under RTE will though he might be eligible for that, but still that awareness has not come to the parents. They feel that only government, if they study in government school, they have that advantage. So that's why the RTE applications are very much less in Tamil Nadu. They prefer to go to government school. Another one reason is the economic reason everybody knows. In private school, they are insisting to pay the last year fees because last year they never attended. Most of them attended only in online. And more than that, if they want to join, they have to pay the double the fees last year plus this year. They are finding very difficult. Plus, in private school, many private school, I have seen that they are insisting every student to have a very smartphone device. If a family has 2 or 3 children, how much can they afford in this in economic situation? So that's why they say it's better to go to a government school. They don't insist that you should have a smartphone. Another thing is, no, the students and parents has got, sir, we'll join government school. Anyhow, see the mentality of the children, not only in Tamil Nadu, everywhere, sir, this COVID is going to continue. Somehow they'll give relaxation in the examination. They'll make us pass. Why should we do unpaid? Let's see if the situation improves. Maybe we might go again to private school. Let's see. Let them then will enjoy the economic the advantage also. So this is are the few things we need to really take. But this is going to be a very challenging for the government, every state government, to provide the proper infrastructure, the quality of education. We should not get diluted.
For example, then, since you mentioned the admissions under the RTE, is that something that maybe not specifically in Tamil Nadu, but other states as well, where a lot more needs to be done for a public education? Government need to push, governments need to further subsidize whatever little expenditure is there, even under RTE for parents, that also they step in and support in times of a pandemic.
Yeah, they have to really do it with no other go. But because today the economic situation rules the major problem. So that's why they're taking the advantage of this, the system, the economic system. That's why there's a huge dropout. Now government has to step in, make sure that they provide. That's why we are keep telling it, there's a huge divide between the rural and the urban side. Even the survey done by the Wipro Asim Premji Foundation, they say the drop of the learning in online has dropped in mathematics 70%, in language 80%. It's a very alarming situation. We need to really do this. See, when a student joins, see, we cannot make them pass. See, all this relaxation should be proper. The first thing the government has to do, we have to do a very huge evaluation process. Every state government, every school has to do evaluation process. How children, where they stand now. In the last 1.5 years, they have not learned really well where they really stand. Unless we have those data, we cannot accept only the Asim Premji Foundation survey. The government, the Ministry of Higher Education and Ministry of Human Resource has to do this survey. Unless we have proper data, we cannot plan ahead. So first thing the government has to do is to completely evaluate the students whenever possible, either through online or when they come for the 9th, 10th, 11th. Many students are going now attending classes. First process is to evaluate them, where they really stand, how much knowledge they have lost. These are the first thing, the stepping stone to make the proper decision, so that even government or the private school can act accordingly, so that our quality doesn't affect in the future admission.
Okay, fair enough. Let me take it now across to Aditi Jain. Good evening to you, and thank you for waiting. Aditi, 3 big issues: dropouts, shifts from private schools to government schools, and also in states like Tamil Nadu, where we've seen a drop under the RTE. Now, 2 of our panelists say at least the shift itself is not a big concern. Of course, dropouts are. Where would you want to see government intervention?
See, it is a very, very sad situation that our students are going through at the moment, and none of us can deny it. And government should take a note of it very, very seriously. First of all, we cannot deny, when I see people around me, they have been economically really hit in COVID times. And parents are facing problems paying up the fees. In fact, I'm knowing parents who are saying that these private schools have increased their fees why is all this happening when the schools are shut? You're giving salaries. Why shouldn't you also try to compromise? I mean, at the end of the day, education is a community service. It's not an economic proposition. Second, when I look at the government schools, when you see the salaries of the teachers, they are far better, in fact, than the private schools. They are paid better, they get pension, they are getting the present pay commission rules apply onto their salaries. So if everything is over there, why? What is the problem? This is, in fact, a very nice time for the government to give that kind of an education to our people, where they don't have to succumb to the pressure of the high fees. When I see the fee structure in Karnataka state, for example, it is exorbitant. I mean, we cannot deny the fact. There is no embargo. How is it that they are, and when you talk to them, you get to hear that, okay, if this is the facility we are providing, and if they want that kind of an infrastructure, they have to pay for it. No. For us, what is the basic need? The child should be educated. He should get that education where his basics are clear and he's not juggling to understand a subject. When we have good teachers, we understand. Now, when we come to the government side, if, for example, on a state level, whenever there is a government official visit to anything, whether it is medical or education, you suddenly see people, stepping up and clearing up the place. So what is the basic thing that our parents or a student demands? A clean place, a clean toilet to study, and good teachers who understand their subject. Where is the point? I mean, where is the problem? I would say it is a golden opportunity for the government to really serve the nation and give these students good education. Yes, I mean, when you talk of developed countries, I see my friends sending their kids to government schools in foreign countries.
Yeah.
We should also be looking forward to a place. And I know of my father. My father was a bureaucrat, a civil servant. He was in the IAS. And he never went to any private school. He is a government school student, and he worked very well as a bureaucrat. He is an author who has published more than 55 books which are published. So why can't we study in these government schools?
So when you say that, Aditi Jain, okay, you're talking about the merits of a government school. I think a lot of our panelists would agree with you. They would say that in certain states there's been significant improvement as well. Then why are you insisting that the private schools be limited in what they are charging and what they are demanding? Let the choice be with people, as long as the states are doing a good job of providing good public education.
Now, come on, if I ask you, when we're talking, this is a very serious issue which we are addressing.
Yeah.
What is the backbone of a country, if I may ask you? It is education and medical. Two things, if a citizen gets, he can contribute to a better nation. Now, when we say let there be competition, okay, I would say, okay, let there be. If we speed up, if we step up the facility, and what we ask for is basic, clean environment, good teachers, clean toilets, safe environment, and I think it is the best place to study. Apart from that, I would also request, if government takes it very seriously, it doesn't take years or months to evaluate. It is very simple because their network is very, very good. When you talk of a state, you have the DM, the district magistrate, then the SDM of different areas. They can all, and the basic Shiksha Adhikari, they all can collaborate. This is what the work is of an education officer, to ensure that these schools are running fine.
Right.
And if this happens, I think there is no problem. And another thing that government should do is that all the government employees, whether the child is a son or a daughter of an IAS or any judge or anything, they should be sending their kids to these government schools. And things would really, really improve. And we would be looking at a very bright future where parents are not stressed. I know so many. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Let me bring in Shashi Kumar, who wanted to make a point. I think he disagrees with you.
Definitely, because Aditi was telling good, but it is only on record because one you said about Karnataka. See, we have hardly 3 to 4% of allied schools who are charging 1 lakh, 2 lakh, 5 lakh, 10 lakh. 95% of the schools across Karnataka charge between 10,000 to 40,000 in this bandwidth. And I would make a point here very clearly: 93% plus is spent from government budget, that whatever it is, 27,000 crores, just on the salary component. The rest is for entire maintenance of the academic. When this is the situation, you cap on the private unaided school and you say you are charging exorbitant. My question directly to all the panelists is: do you know what the government is spending per child expenditure? That is reaching more than 60,000 to 1 lakh plus in government schools when compared to most of the private unaided schools. Why the country is not understanding the contribution of private unaided school? Because of few schools, few corporate sector schools who charge lakhs of rupees. Keeping that in mind, we can't say the entire system is costlier. Here the matter lies. So that is my strong point here to make understand that most of the schools across India, they are providing better accountable quality education for a lower cost. Yes, if I am not wrong, yes, the salary of the teachers in those schools are less, because you can't pay sixth pay commission or seventh pay commission charging 10,000, 15,000, 20,000. And when it comes to teachers qualification, yes, most creamy layer of thing is being observed by the government. Rest in this country, we are giving quality, we are giving best out of best within that what we are available.
Okay,
That is what I.
so then let's pick up this point and take it back to Dr. Sanjeev Rai. Then Dr. Rai, the fact still remains that a lot of these students and their parents across the board are having to shift to government schools, not out of choice, but for lack of options, because they cannot afford it. Now, for those who can afford, even now in times of a pandemic, if they haven't lost a job, if their salaries haven't been cut, if they still have access, to good internet, lots of gadgets, and they can afford to send their children to these schools, they're continuing to do so. But a lot of people aren't, and they are having to shift. Should that be looked into? I should have a choice, yes, but when I don't have a choice, should there be government support then?
Yes, very valid question. And just I want to communicate to Mr. Sasi Kumar, we are not creating a binary between private school versus government schools. Let's accept that. We are talking about the children of this country. And as Aditi rightly pointed out, that we are concerned about the quality education which has been promised under Right to Education Act. It's the free and compulsory education for 6 to 14 years age group.
What is the cost under the act?
Keep patience, please keep patience. Which has been promised under Right to Education Act. We have been demanding to extension of this right to education up to 18 years, which has not happened yet, but still. And under Right to Education Act, 25% seats are reserved in private schools under EWS quota. You better know. This is the responsibility of the state. And here, since the education is under concurrent list, the center and state should take care of all the expenditures borne by the student who are going to any school. That ideal situation should be. At the same time, if government is not able to take all the children into free and quality education, and some private schools are also contributing into that, that should be welcome. But at the same time, the teachers' exploitation in private schools, the discrimination with the children who are enrolled under EWS quota, the quality is also a myth which has been proved by many reports that private schools, low-budget private schools are not offering a quality education which parents feel. And that's also one reason after 2 years, 3 years, parents take back their children to government schools. So that's also a fact. The another aspect I'm trying to bring in, that state's responsibility is to take care of education and health of every citizen of this country. So forget about 10,000 and 40,000 range. You see, the governments are offering free uniforms, midday meal, school uniform, because they know that the people are aware now, and now they are asking their public representatives that what are you doing on education, what are you doing on health services.
Okay.
And that's also another fact, Tanvi, I wanted to. Many state governments have been establishing state universities, offering a quota for the
Yes.
students who graduate from the government schools. Delhi is one such case where Ambedkar University Delhi offers 85% seats to those who have studied in the schools of Delhi only. So that also attracts lots of parents that, okay, the forward linkages have been established. So let's take advantage of that. Otherwise, they have to go here and they are in private schools paying lakh for the higher education. So that's also one reason.
In fact, because you raised that, let me just take it across to Mr. Jayaprakash, because that I also believe, Mr. Jayaprakash, is one of the reasons for the big move that we have seen even in Tamil Nadu. Also another state that does offer you reservation in higher courses, higher educational courses if you come from a government school.
Yeah, definitely. See, that's a huge attraction. Last year, under government reservation for government school students, 7.5 reservation. Can you believe this? A government school student with just 200 NEET marks, and out of 720, 200 NEET marks, he was able to get into a government medical college, wherein a student has to score almost, last time cutoff was 569. I mean, 469, 569 marks for NEET. See the difference between where is 200. If you study in government school, only 200 marks is getting government medical college. When he studies in a private, he has to score almost. Yeah. So that's a huge advantage he gets it. And also this time also we expect the same thing. Another instead of discussing all the problem, my thing is we educationists have to give solution to the government. My first thing is, why not we create a special educational loan even for school children? And many people say, when I suggest this, the people say they are not even paying it for the higher education. How do you expect to give loan for the school education? I said, why not? See, when we buy a car under hire purchase, in the RC book, we put an endorsement saying that this car has been under loan. Why not we give a certification when +2 certification? Why not give an endorsement in the behind the certification that this boy has got a loan? And even the degree certificate. So when we say, then only they'll have a fear to pay back, or there will be some routine. See, we need to find solution to move ahead instead of discussing. So the main shift is only because of the government is giving a very special reservations for the government school students. There's going to be a shift more in future also.
Okay, so you're saying the shift will actually continue if such incentives remain. One other aspect, again, if the shift is taking place because the parents are making that choice out of specific benefits, all right. But Mr. Krishna Rao, often we see, and this debate has repeatedly emerged from various states, that the 25% reservations which are there under RTE are often not filled up by the private schools, and that becomes a point of contention between the state and the private schools. Now, is there a way to resolve that problem? Otherwise, this back and forth will keep on continuing and we will just lose out on what is essentially a good policy.
No, I think it's a good policy, and I mean, there's nothing like a friction. It's for the government to ensure that it is implemented. So I think it all depends on the sincerity of the government and of the officers to ensure that particular guideline is implemented. I don't think it's that big a problem, provided the government is sincere about it. But first of all, when we come and talk about this whole education scenario, there are two things. There's one, this secular issue about how much the government spends on education, how much they should spend, how much they should support. That is independent of the pandemic. So that's one area which we can look into. And quite a number of governments are coming back to putting their money into the educational infrastructure. It's happening in most of the Telugu states, that much I know, because for a long time giving these freebies was becoming a bigger attraction compared to providing for the social infrastructure. But when you are talking of the pandemic, we are talking of three impacts. One is the dropout, second, the quality of education, third, the shift from the private to the public. Dropout is a issue which has to be addressed independent of private as well as the public schools, because the dropout is happening at both the places. Quality of the education is also equally an important thing because of the other modes that we are getting into, and also the fear of the parents. If you send my children, they may catch. So why can't we as well forego an academic year and ensure that they are safe? This attitude is also there in the children, which is affecting the quality. How do we address that? That's something that needs to be addressed. But there are certain initiatives which are taking place in the government schools, which are a welcome thing, like the infrastructure is getting better wherever they are spending well. Of course, the two issues which will remain main and needs to be addressed is the motivation of the government teachers and the role of the what I would say these unions. Unions is a very, very big issue as far as the government teachers are concerned. Thank you.
Okay, point well taken. I want to go back to Aditi, on this question as well. And I repeatedly emphasize on this, that on people having that choice, whether they want to send somebody to a public school or a private school, provided the quality of the education is good both. And then it's about affordability and what choices you make and where you want to go. But that's not true in our country in many parts. Now, that being said, should the states be okay with such large migration from private schools to public schools?
Well, as I said earlier to you, that it is a very, very welcome news to my ears that government schools people are turning to. And if they are into government schools, definitely schools should be taken seriously, which they have not been taken into consideration. I would request the government to step it up seriously, do it so that there is no tension over parents' heads. Yes, as you said that there should be a choice between them. Yes, they can opt for a private school over and above, but then with all the reservation quotas in medical, engineering, law, I think when you go to an office of a government official, it is a basic, neat place. When you go to the residence of a government official, it's a basic, neat place. Same way, when we go to it's a temple. I mean, a school is a temple where you are getting education and you are making the future force of our country. We need to invest in there. We need to understand that unless we take it seriously, we cannot think of our country improving in various sectors, because these are the kids who are going to occupy the various walks of life, be it engineer, lawyers, or even politicians, doctors. So I would say that this is to be taken seriously. You need to really debate about it. You need to ring into their ears that take it up, do this education bit in a way that our country gets an improved education. Now tell me, when we send our kids, I know when we send our kids to these private institutions, do you agree or not that in class 10 and 12, all subjects, nearly all subjects, I insist, parents are giving tuition to their kids? Why aren't the students being educated in schools itself?
I think that's irrespective, Aditi, of whether they are going to private or public. It's largely how much you can afford to pay for tuitions, and if you can, they are. It's just become a trend where every parent just wants to do that without taking any risk of whether or not what the child is being taught in school is good enough.
No. Here, my point is different. Probably it didn't come across correctly. I was not able to express it. When I am giving tuition, and it is everywhere, okay, it's not something unique that I'm telling. It is happening in private schools. My question to these private schools is that why aren't we employing teachers who are, I mean, I remember myself in my school time, I've been to the best of schools. I mean, the teachers, half the time, we never understood the subject. And the subject that we were interested in was the subject where the teacher was very good and we could understand it.
Well,
if the teacher is good.
Okay, I'm going to quickly take it across to Shashi Kumar, but this is something that he referred to again. Is Shashi Kumar, is it about affordability? Because the creamy layer, any which ways, goes to government schools, and so at least the affordable private schools can't really pay them that salary.
I would say creamy layer does not go to government schools.
That's what Shashi Kumar says.
No, it is not the truth. It's not the ground reality. From where?
Shashi Kumar.
Where? I mean,
let him respond. Let him respond, Aditi.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I don't take with Aditi because she is saying that private schools, the children are going for tuition because it is parents' expectation. They are too much expecting that they want best out of best from their children. And it is not that. The schools providing enough education, quality education. Beyond that, the parents are expecting. It is not the fault of any respective school. But here, when it comes to government, it is a different. Even government school children are opting for private tuitions. It is not that, for example, if they want to take up engineering or doctor, they are being pushed by the parents. Even the students are finding it. They want to learn more and they are opting the tuition. That can't be blamed because they are in the private schools. Only those students are going for tuition. We don't take with that.
All right, completely out of time. I'm going to thank all of the panelists for joining us on this conversation. Fact of the matter remains, this is what it is. This is not a debate about whether private schools are better than public schools or public schools are better than private schools in our country. For different states, it may be different. The larger perception, at least in non-southern states, is that the private schools offer much better education. And that's why any parent who can afford it will try and send their children to a private school. But in times of a pandemic, we are seeing this now as a larger trend, state after state, from north to south, that more number of children are shifting from private school to public school, girls and boys both put together. There is a larger shift that is taking place, largely, experts will tell you, because people are not able to afford the private school education, not out of choice, not out of belief that public schools offer you better opportunities. In some cases, perhaps like the case of Tamil Nadu, experts do say it's also because there are reservations in higher studies that the state is offering if you come from government schools, and also because the difference in quality is not so much that the parents don't mind shifting to government school if they're feeling the pinch on their wallet. But if it is anything more than that, and for the fact of dropouts, if thousands of students from Andhra Pradesh to Bihar are actually just dropping out of schools altogether, that is something that the state governments do need to look at and find solutions with all the stakeholders involved. Education has been the biggest fallout, biggest collateral in this pandemic. It's been our students. And we cannot afford yet another big challenge there. They already have too much on their plate with repeated pauses and halts and setbacks in their academic session last year and this year. Thank you for joining us.